Welcome to this bonus edition of the SUP FM podcast. We're preparing for the launch of season 4, but while we do that, there are still a huge amount of things that are happening in the SUP world. So the intention of these bonus episodes is to bring you that information as it comes up in a more informal style. And we'll be bringing the regular format back with the start of the new season. In this bonus episode, we cover some international updates. We've got a very good interview with Ben Bowers, the Englishman who's set up an expedition with a bunch of British celebrities, and the latest from Brendan Prince, our guest from episode 58, who is currently paddling the coast of Britain. A massive congratulations this week to Casper Steinfeth, who successfully crossed the Kattegat Strait, which is a 123-kilometre crossing between Denmark and Sweden. Now, for those of you who don't know Casper, he's a 6-time world champion. He's a 2-time winner of the Red Bull heavy water competition. So he's just a phenomenal athlete, and he set himself the challenge of doing various Viking crossings. So he's crossed from Denmark to Norway, and this was him crossing from Denmark through to Sweden through this particular patch of water. And this time he was doing it on a foil board with a paddle, and it was just the most incredible physical challenge. He's obviously a guy who's in fantastic physical shape, but he got about halfway and then started getting really concerned that he was going to cramp up. And obviously huge amount of distance still to go. But he managed to make it. In the last 10 kilometres, the wind and the waves dropped. So that's not a great help when you're on a foil board. And he managed to paddle in to the shore on his belly. So big congratulations for him for that achievement. He's got one Viking crossing to go in the North Sea. So I'm not sure when that's going to happen, but unbelievable achievement to be able to complete that second challenge. And if you did want to find out more about Casper and his adventures and where he's come from, then there's some great videos on Red Bull TV, which we will link to in the show notes. This week, I got to chat with Ben Bowers, who's the organiser of an expedition which is setting out this week to paddle and to raise money for a very worthy charity. And what makes this expedition slightly different is he's involved a whole bunch of well-known British celebrities. So here's my chat with Ben Bowers. Ben, welcome to SUP FM. It's great to have you on.
Great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Well, I know you're a very busy guy because the event starts tomorrow, so you've got loads of logistics to sort out. First of all, just tell us a bit about your background and your experience and what really drew you to paddleboarding.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, fairly limited experience. I guess I've always been outdoorsy and active, big cyclists, motorbikes, snowboarding, mountain boards, kite surfing, all of that stuff. I've had a go at most things. So it was only natural that at some point in the distant past, I'd hop on a paddleboard. I can't remember the first time I actually went on one, but I think the most I've done is in Australia, bizarrely, in Sydney Harbour. When I've been over there, I used to go over there on business when I was working for Movember, and I had some projects. Obviously, they're Australian based, so I spent some time in sort of Rose Bay and Sydney Harbour paddleboarding, which is probably the most memorable, but slightly different conditions and setting, really, to what we're about to take on. But more recently, I've done a bit with some mates, and one of those is Charley Boorman. Mm-hmm. He's got into paddleboarding quite a lot in the last couple of years, sort of part of his rehabilitation from his, he had some bad motorcycle accidents that smashed his legs up. So that's been quite good for him to get out and do some rehabilitation. So we spent a little bit of time on the Thames and near Walton, in just outside London there, on the river. But that's about it. Probably count on Well, it's increased a bit now because I've been out sort of 5 or 6 times training for this challenge, but I've probably only paddleboarded 20 times in my life, which made it the natural choice for a 2-day endurance challenge, obviously. But do you know what? Interestingly, since I've been training for this, and I guess all your listeners will be able to sort of relate to this, with all the craziness that's been going on with pandemics, and I've got a 9-month-old daughter, and all the organising for this trip, I've found that just taking that time to get out on the water, as soon as I step on that board, everything just seems to dissipate away. And you just have this moment of peace and relaxation and connection, and it's wonderful, wonderfully soothing, and been really, really good just to have that place to go, really, and relax.
And that's wonderful that you've said that, and it's something that we've discussed many times on the podcast. Paddleboarding seems to hit so many different notes in terms of mental health as well as physical health. You know, you've got that blue mind type attitude, yes, where, you know, spending time in and around water. You've got the nature aspect to it, and you've also got the rehabilitation element to it, particularly physically. And funny you should say about Charley Boorman and his motorbike injury. My great pal, my paddle partner down here on the south coast, was a motorbike racer, and someone very much still into his bikes, but you know, it's been a very great benefit for him as well. But in terms of Charley Boorman, because we have an international listenership, he's very well known in the UK for his motorbike activity. He went out on some pretty hefty expeditions, didn't he?
Yeah, extraordinary expeditions with his good mate Ewan McGregor. Obi-Wan Kenobi, I guess he's probably best known for now. But yeah, Charley and Ewan, their first trip was the long way round, where they circumnavigated the globe on motorcycles. They then did the long way down from Scotland, from the northern tip of Scotland to the southern tip of Africa. And they've just completed long way up, which was a journey from I can't pronounce it, the southerly point of Argentina, something like that, to LA, but they did that on the new electric Harley Davidson. So Charley's done loads of other sort of adventures, TV series and various different things. So he's very much a man that's no stranger to a challenge and an adventure, and likes to get out and get out into nature. He's a great guy to have on the trip, and he was my first recruit, actually, because we're great mates. And we actually met because we both had testicular cancer, and fully enough, a mutual friend was working for him and introduced us sort of 12 years ago, quite a long time ago, and we met through that. But we're both keen bikers, so we became good friends from there. So he was my go-to first recruit. The original plan for this trip was we were going to do it in January on Blue Monday, which is the most depressing day of the year. We thought it's a good day to try and inspire people to get out and get out into nature and can reconnect with their friends, and as we come out of this pandemic. But then the pandemic had to have other thoughts, and we were locked down even further, so we had to push the date back a couple of times. So that's why we're doing it now. But having said that, I'm quite grateful, because although the forecast isn't brilliant for the next couple of days, it's warm, and it's certainly not the sub-zero temperatures of January that we were facing, which would have been a different challenge altogether.
Challenging. So just in terms of the event, so if you just sort of explain exactly what it is that you and the team are doing over the next few days.
Yeah, so the challenge that I've set, and purely because the Basingstoke Canal's at the back of my house, and I looked online and saw how long it was and thought, that's possible. So it's a 30-mile, 2-day paddleboard challenge to navigate the length of the Basingstoke Canal from west to east. So we start at Greywell and finish in West Byfleet. The day is split into 2. So day 1 tomorrow, Monday, is the 17 miles. So a longer stretch for the first leg, but with one lock. This becomes important when you move to day 2, which is 13 miles and a mere 28 locks. So just a wee bit of portaging to navigate day 2. So we'll see how that goes. But we're very lucky. We've got Gladiator boards are supporting the trip and providing boards. They're inflatable Gladiator elites. And I've got a 14-foot board that's about 16 kilos. I think it's incredibly light. So hopefully that will help us in and out of the canals a lot. But certainly 30 miles, I think it didn't sound like a lot when I first thought about doing it. But I hadn't really trained, and now I've done a few paddles. It's dawning on me quite how far just 17 miles in a day is, let alone 30 over 2 days. So,
I mean, you mentioned that you're not the most experienced paddleboarder, and paddleboarding, as you said, has really picked up since sort of emerging from the various different lockdowns. And last summer was absolutely incredible, and we expect this summer to be exactly the same. What sort of experience have your celebrity team got on paddleboards? Are they experienced? You mentioned Charley's been on a few times, but what about the rest of them?
Yeah. The nervous laughter. Basically, most of them very little. For example, Deface, the street artist, who's a good mate, an amazing artist. He hadn't actually done it before until about 2 weeks ago, and he's been out twice. But he hasn't fallen in, so I'm taking that as a positive. And Paul at Active 360 has been great, and they're sort of helping coaching some of these guys. James Haskell, international rugby player, English, British and Irish Lions. He's about 18 and a half, 19 stone.
Yeah, that's a challenge. What size board has he got?
Well, he's got, I think we put him on an 11.6 to practice. But it was wide, so it was at 34, and he was good actually. He was tired because he was obviously working really hard to all the muscles to stay balanced. I think when you start, you're quite stressed, aren't you? Tense up.
It's the feet, isn't it?
Yeah, the feet. But he did really good. He enjoyed it, which was the main thing. He'd done a little bit in Dubai, probably drunk. But his wife Chloe Madeley is coming. She's done a lot, so I'm not too worried about her. Matthew Wright's done quite a bit fishing, actually.
Oh, right.
He was very comfortable, but the other guys, Giles and Nick English from Bremont, have done a bit. So everyone's done a bit, other than D, but he's taken to it really well. But certainly nobody's, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners have, can appreciate. You do a bit, you're out for an hour maybe just poodling around and just having fun and enjoying it. I think that's very different to hour after hour after hour of grinding out the miles just on a canal going in a straight line. So a very different mentality I think that we'll need to adopt over the coming days. Physically, we're not going to be going fast, we're not going to break any records, but we need to maintain a pace to complete it in daylight. So it's going to be that repetitive grinding. I think the psychological challenge of just putting that paddle in the water again and again, and just the fatigue and making sure we stay hydrated and the energy levels are maintained, that we don't all crash and so I think everyone's up to it. Everyone will be a much better paddler by the end of it.
Yeah, well, without doubt, it's all about time on the water, and you've got two distinctive characters in there who will shore things up if things get tough. James Haskell is renowned for his morale boosting, and Paul Hyman's technical ability and so on. So you've got at least two fantastic members of the team there. But that sounds really, really exciting. And in terms of what you're doing it for, so the purpose of this, other than to sort of get out there, is to spread the word about Movember, isn't it? And to raise money for the charity. Just tell us a little bit about that. I mean, you've obviously worked for them, but what sort of things do Movember do? outside of the key sort of fundraising month for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, obviously best known for that moustache growing month in November. But Movember as an organisation or a global men's health foundation. They're actually the world's largest men's health foundation, focusing exclusively on men and tackling some of the biggest issues that men face around the world. And at the moment, those issues are prostate cancer, testicular cancer, men's mental health, and suicide prevention. So those are the cause areas that they invest tens of millions of pounds a year into finding, cures for diseases, better tests, better treatment options, and creating support programs and access programs for men to learn really how to engage in their physical and mental health and stay emotionally and physically well. So an amazing organisation doing some really groundbreaking work and really making a significant impact on those cause areas. I had testicular cancer twice, and beyond that physical challenge of dealing with that, I had a lot of, as you can imagine, mental health challenges through that, and didn't. I was 26 and 30 when I had my cancer, so very young in the grand scheme of things, and certainly didn't really deal with those issues at all. Frankly, for a long time, and they had quite a profound impact. And it's taken me many years to learn really about my own mental health and learn how to manage it well, and learn to talk about it openly, talk about my mental health, and that's been hugely beneficial to me on a personal level after suffering quite a lot of trauma through it. So I'm very aware of the power of conversation, the power of social connection and getting together with your mates, the power of getting outside and being active and connecting with nature. So really the whole point of this trip was to raise the profile, I guess, of those issues, to inspire people to get out. We can't go on big adventures overseas at the moment, so we need to look a bit closer to home. But you can't get much closer than 200 meters from my back door, and I've got this ridiculous adventure. It doesn't sound quite as glamorous when you say we're going to take on an adventure of the Basingstoke Canal, but that's the whole point. It doesn't have to sound glamorous to put yourself in a challenging situation. But we just want to come together and show people. Movember's all about social connection, encouraging guys to speak up, to speak out, to look after each other, to support each other, and remove the stigmas around mental health and sort of what it means to be a man in the modern age. So by coming together as a group, we're looking to hopefully show people how you can do that, to inspire them to go out with their mates, to find adventure, to speak, to have those shoulder to shoulder conversations, because they're so important for our mental health. And the big thing for me really is that as we come out of this pandemic, that I'm just really conscious that we don't leave anybody behind. It'd be very easy because everyone's been so isolated, for those the most vulnerable especially, to find ways and excuses to stay in isolation, and we know that that's a very dangerous situation for people to be in. Being socially isolated is one of the big factors that leads to mental health issues and ultimately suicide. So we need to make sure we bring our friends, we all bring each other out of this, and find ways that we can do that. And as I say, hopefully this is, just one little thing that can help inspire people and give you some ideas about how you can come out together and reconnect with your friends in a fun and positive way.
Absolutely. And we are absolutely all for that on this podcast. Really appreciate you spending time with us and talking about the expedition, and all the best of luck for the next few days. And we will have you on the podcast in a regular episode when you're reflecting on the trip. So it'd be great to have you on again, and maybe some of the team members. If people wanted to support you, to make a contribution, or just to find you on social media, we'll obviously include all the links in the show notes. but where would people be able to find you?
You can find me on Instagram. I am Ben Bowers, and you can, if you go onto the Movember website, there's a story in the news about the trip with a link to the fundraising. But the Movember website's movember.com, and there is a fundraising page set up there, movember.com/T/the big stand up.
That's fantastic. Thanks ever so much for your time, Ben. Best of luck, and hopefully I'll see you on the water sometime.
Great stuff. Thanks so much for your time, Simon. Appreciate it.
So the final part of this bonus episode is to talk about friend of the show, Brendan Prince, who, as you'll all know from episode 58, is currently doing the Long Paddle 2021, which is circumnavigating the entire coastline of mainland Britain by paddleboard. And he's already 2 weeks into the Long Paddle and is making really good progress despite the huge amounts of wind and swell out there. And he's now on the north coast of Cornwall. Anyone who knows Great Britain knows that that is a huge area for swell and surf. So there's some really challenging conditions that he's fighting his way through, but he's doing very well and appears to be in very, very good spirits, very high morale. Now, the sort of coastline he's paddling at the moment is very similar to that in the TV series Poldark. So I'm sure it's available on BritBox or Netflix or something like that. If you want to get an idea of the sort of coastline where it's rocky cliffs going down to the sea and occasional open sandy beach, that's the sort of coastline that he's paddling at the moment. And if you can imagine doing that on one board as well, its requirement for the world record attempt was that it needed to be done on one specific board. So basically he needs one board that does everything despite all the variety and different conditions that he's crossing. So he's doing really well. Big respect to him and the team, and we have been in contact with him, and we're hoping to get him on just to give an update on a bonus episode really soon. So I hope you enjoyed this bonus episode, and to keep updated on the SupFM podcast, you can go to our website at supfmpodcast.com and subscribe to our newsletter for all of our updates. And if you did enjoy the episode, then please let us know on Instagram, and I'm planning to do more of them as we get closer to season 4. Those people who have listened for a while will know how important it is to the show to get your support. And I do this for the love of the sport, and I will always do it for the love of the sport. But what would be great is to offset some of the costs of production, hosting, all of those very unglamorous parts of the operation. And we've just launched a brand new Patreon site where you can support by sending us a few dollars or a few pounds every month. And that's at patreon.com/SupFM podcast. And of course, the other way you could support us and keep safe on the water is by buying our SUP safety course, which is full of videos to help you understand and plan for conditions, to help you with your kit choices, and it's also got quizzes and downloads, and the link is in the show notes. So thanks very much for listening. Congratulations to Casper, Ben and Brendan. Tell us what you think about the bonus episode, and we'll see you on the water.